Chapter 1. The Forced Alliance, approx 1,500 words. The Pixelplex conference hall was a symphony of controlled chaos. The air hummed with the energy of 100 indie game demos, the chirpy soundtracks of platformers mingling with the grim soundscapes of post-apocalyptic RPGs. In one corner, surrounded by a small but enthralled crowd, was Ethan Reed's booth. His game, Starlight Drifter, was a masterpiece of quiet beauty. It was a contemplative puzzle exploration game set on an abandoned generation ship, where the story was told through environmental clues and haunting minimalist music. Players moved slowly, thoughtfully, solving physics-based puzzles to restore light and life to the derelict vessel. Ethan, a man with thoughtful brown eyes and a tendency to nervously push his glasses up his nose, watched players engage with his creation, a proud, shy smile on his face. Across the aisle, the vibe was Jieran Butong, completely different. Cody Codebreaker. Lee's booth was a riot of neon lights and pulsing synthwave. His game, Neon Fury, was a fast-paced, score-attack shooter where players wall-ran and dash-dodged through cyberpunk levels, obliterating rogue AI with stylish combos. Cody himself was a whirlwind of energy, with artfully messy hair and a worn leather jacket. He was loudly cheering on a player, his laughter booming over the electronic carnage. Ethan sighed, shooting a weary glance at Cody's booth. Noise, he thought. Flash over substance. Their games, and by extension their philosophies, were polar opposites. They'd been rivals since their first games debuted on the same platform 2 years ago, their fans often clashing in online forums about what defined a real game. The climax of the convention was the Indie Showcase Awards. Ethan nervously clenched his hands as the host announced the nominees for Best Innovation. And the winner is... The host paused for dramatic effect. Starlight Drifter by Ethan Reed. Elation surged through Ethan. He made his way to the stage, his heart pounding. As he accepted the small glass trophy, he felt a validation he'd been craving for years. And now, for the grand prize, the host continued. A $50,000 development grant and a featured spot on the Vortex Games storefront. This was the big one. Ethan's name was called again as a nominee, alongside Neon Fury. He held his breath. The winner is Neon Fury by Cody Lee. The crowd erupted. Cody whooped, jumping up and pumping his fist before striding confidently to the stage. He took his trophy, grinning from ear to ear. Yeah, thanks everyone. This is for all the players who love fast action and big explosions, he said into the mic, his voice full of charismatic charm. He glanced at Ethan, who was still holding his own award, and gave him a friendly, competitive wink. Ethan looked away, a knot of disappointment and irritation tightening in his stomach. After the ceremony, all the winners were asked to stay for a meeting with the judges and a representative from Vortex Games. Ethan and Cody found themselves sitting next to each other in a small conference room. Ms. Evans, the Vortex rep, a sharp woman with a keen eye, addressed them. Congratulations to you both. We were incredibly impressed with your work. Starlight Drifter is a poignant, emotional experience. Neon Fury is a thrilling, technical marvel. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we have a proposition for you. Our data shows a growing market for games that blend genres, that offer both deep narrative and engaging mechanics. We believe the next big hit will lie at that intersection. Ethan and Cody exchanged a confused glance. So, Ms. Evans continued, a sly smile on her lips, we are offering you the grant money, but not separately. We want you to collaborate. Combine your talents. Create a single game that has the heart of Starlight Drifter and the exhilarating gameplay of Neon Fury. The room went silent. Collaborate? Cody blurted out, laughing incredulously. With him, my game has a Metacritic score of 88. I don't need to dilute it with... with slow-paced walking sim elements. Ethan bristled, his shyness evaporating under the insult. And my game has won narrative awards. I have no interest in cluttering. It's emotional core with mindless shooting galleries. Ms. Evans remained calm. This isn't a request, gentlemen. It's a condition of the grant. You work together, you get $25,000 each and a guaranteed feature. You refuse, and the grant is offered to the next team on our list. Think of it as creative boot camp. The ultimatum hung in the air. For both of them, $25,000 was a lifeline. It meant being able to work full-time on their passion, to hire a freelance musician, to actually pay rent. It was an opportunity they couldn't afford to pass up, even if it meant working with their rival. Through gritted teeth, they both agreed. A week later, the collaboration began in Ethan's small, tidy apartment. His workspace was immaculate. Monitors aligned perfectly, notebooks neatly stacked, a single succulent plant on the desk. Cody arrived like a hurricane, dropping his backpack, which spilled a cable, an energy drink, and a bag of chips onto the floor. "All right, Reed, let's get this over with," he said, flopping onto the sofa. "I've got an idea. It's called Star Fury. You play a space drifter who finds a powerful mech suit. We can keep your lonely spaceship, but then you suit up. And blow stuff up, yeah?" Ethan stared at him, horrified. "That completely undermines the entire thematic point of solitude and discovery. The player is supposed to feel small and contemplative." "And bored," Cody retorted. "People play games to have fun, not to get a degree in astrophysics." Their first meeting ended after 2 hours with nothing accomplished but a massive headache for Ethan and a frustrated scowl on Cody's face. It seemed the only thing they could create together was tension. Chapter 2. Code and Compromise, approx 1,500 words. The second week was no better. They decided to split the work. Cody would build a prototype of the core movement and combat mechanics, while Ethan would draft the narrative and level design. Cody, working on Ethan's spare computer, was a blur of frantic typing. Lines of code scrolled down the screen at a dizzying pace. He'd whoop when something worked and curse under his breath when it didn't, constantly tapping his foot or chewing on his lip. Ethan, trying to write at the kitchen table, found it impossible to concentrate. "Do you have to make so much noise?" he finally snapped, unable to take the constant tapping and muttered exclamations. Cody swiveled in his chair. "This is how I work, man. Creativity isn't a silent library. It's a rock concert." He gestured to Ethan's notebook. "How's the super depressing story of the lonely spaceman coming along?" "It's about the resilience of the human spirit," Ethan said coldly. Yeah, resilience," Cody said, turning back to his screen. "I'm adding a rocket punch. That's resilient." Ethan sighed, putting his head in his hands. This was a disaster. The breakthrough, ironically, came from a disaster of Cody's own making. He'd brought over his powerful desktop computer to show Ethan a tech demo. In his excitement, he tripped over a power strip, yanking the cord from the wall and causing a sudden shutdown. Worse, the shutdown corrupted the hard drive where he'd stored the only copy of his new untested movement code. "No, no, no!" Cody groaned, frantically trying to reboot the machine. "I didn't back it up. I was in the zone. That was hours of work." Ethan watched the genuine panic on Cody's face. The arrogant, boisterous facade was gone, replaced by the raw frustration of a creator who had just lost something precious. Without a word, Ethan walked over to his own impeccably organized desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out an external hard drive. "I back up my work every 4 hours," he said quietly, handing it to Cody. "And I use a cloud sync service as a secondary. You can restore your last stable version from here, maybe, and we can try to rebuild the rest." Cody looked from the hard drive to Ethan's face, his expression one of surprise. You back up my stuff too?" Ethan shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. "It's a shared project. Of course I do. I mirror your project folder every night. Force of habit." the anger drained from Cody, replaced by a dawning respect. "Oh, wow. Thanks, man. I guess my way isn't always the best way. And my quiet way isn't always conducive to rocket punches," Ethan admitted with a small, reluctant smile. It was the first crack in the wall between them. Cody spent the next hour restoring his work, with Ethan patiently helping him set up an automated backup system. The process was frustrating, but they were working together, not against each other. Later, as they took a break eating pizza, Cody's energy was more subdued. "Sorry about the code," he said, uncharacteristically quiet. "I get hyper-focused. My brain moves 1,000,000 miles a minute, and I forget the boring stuff." "It's not boring, it's essential," Ethan said, but his tone was gentle, not accusatory. "What you do, the speed, the complexity, it's actually really impressive. I couldn't code like that if my life depended on it." Cody looked up, a genuine smile replacing his usual grin. "Yeah, well, the way you build a story, all those subtle clues and emotional beats, I wouldn't know where to start. It's like magic." They looked at each other, and for the first time, they truly saw each other, not as rivals, but as two developers with complementary but different strengths. "So," Ethan started tentatively. "Rocket punch?" Cody laughed. "Okay, maybe not a rocket punch, but what if the movement was really fluid and fast, but the world you're moving through is this beautiful, derelict, and quiet place? The contrast could be amazing. The player feels powerful and agile, but the environment encourages them to slow down and look." Ethan considered this, his brow furrowed in thought. "So the mechanics are fun and engaging, but they serve the exploration, not the other way around." "Exactly," Cody said, his excitement returning but in a more focused way. "And maybe the combat isn't about killing things. Maybe it's about, I don't know, cleansing, restoring. You use your agility to navigate and your weapons to solve environmental puzzles and bring light back." The idea hung in the air between them. It wasn't Starlight Drifter. It wasn't Neon Fury. It was something new, something that could be theirs. Ethan felt a spark of real excitement. That could actually work. For the rest of the evening, the whiteboard in Ethan's apartment filled with ideas. Cody's energetic, sprawling sketches were punctuated by Ethan's neat, bullet-pointed lists. They argued, but it was no longer a battle. It was a debate, a passionate exchange of ideas aimed at a common goal. When Cody left that night, the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The forced collaboration had become a genuine partnership. And Ethan, tidying up the pizza boxes, realized he was actually looking forward to their next session. He looked at the chaotic, inspiring mess on the whiteboard and smiled. For the first time, the mess didn't bother him at all. Chapter 3. Beyond the Screen, Approx. 1,500 words. With a shared vision, their work sessions became something Ethan eagerly anticipated. Cody's energy, once distracting, was now infectious. His wild ideas pushed Ethan out of his creative comfort zone, and Ethan's thoughtful structure gave Cody's creativity a much-needed framework. They fell into a natural rhythm. Mornings were for focused, quiet work. Ethan writing dialogue and designing puzzles, Cody debugging code. Afternoons were for integration and playtesting, which were always loud, hilarious affairs filled with Cody's commentary. "Why is the character glitching through the floor? He's asserting his dominance." And Ethan's more measured analysis, "The physics engine isn't calculating the collision mesh correctly." One rainy Thursday, while taking a break, Cody noticed a framed photo on Ethan's bookshelf. It showed a younger Ethan with a man and a woman who shared his kind eyes, standing in front of a university building. "Your parents?" Cody asked. Ethan nodded. "Move-in day for my computer science degree." "They look proud," Cody said softly. Ethan's smile became a little strained. They are. They hoped the degree would lead to something a bit more stable than indie game development. Something at a big tech firm with a 401k. He pushed his glasses up his nose. The gaming thing is still a bit of a mystery to them. They ask every time we talk if I've started looking for a real job yet. Cody was quiet for a moment. My mom's the same, he admitted, surprising Ethan. Cody always seemed so confident, so immune to doubt. She's a nurse. A practical person. She thinks my job is just me playing on the computer all day. She keeps sending me links to job postings for IT support. Ethan laughed, a real, warm laugh. Mine too. So-and-so's son is a network security analyst. He makes such good money. They shared a look of mutual understanding, a bond forged in the common ground of parental perplexity. It was a struggle they'd both faced alone, and now suddenly they weren't alone in it. "What about your dad?" Ethan asked cautiously. Cody's usually animated face grew still. "He took off when I was 10. Not really in the picture." He shrugged, a defensive gesture that didn't match his casual tone. "Probably for the best. He wasn't a big fan of, well, me." The way he said it hinted at something deeper. Ethan didn't press, but he felt a surge of protectiveness toward Cody. His boisterous personality wasn't just confidence, it was also a shield. "Well," Ethan said, "for what it's worth, I think you're pretty brilliant at what you do." Cody looked at him, his guard dropping for a second, revealing a vulnerability Ethan had never seen before. "Thanks, Eth. You too." The nickname, spoken so softly, sent an unexpected warmth through Ethan. Another day, Ethan was struggling with a particularly tricky narrative beat. He needed to convey a character's deep loneliness without any dialogue. "What's got you scowling at the screen?" Cody asked, rolling his chair over. Ethan explained the problem. Cody listened intently, then was quiet for a moment. "What if," he said slowly, "we use the mechanics? We give the player a really fast, fun movement ability right before this point. They're feeling powerful. Then they enter this big, empty chamber, and the ability just doesn't work. The room dampens it. They're forced to walk slowly across this huge, silent space. The contrast would make the loneliness feel even heavier." Ethan stared at him, amazed. "Cody, that's perfect. That's genius." Cody beamed, a blush creeping up his neck. "Yeah, cool, just a thought." It was more than a thought. It was a moment of profound creative synergy. Cody wasn't just a code monkey, he was a storyteller in his own right. And Ethan wasn't just a narrative designer, he understood how mechanics could serve emotion. Their project, now tentatively titled Echo Drifter, was becoming something truly special. But more importantly, the foundation of their partnership was deepening into a real friendship. They started texting each other links to interesting articles or funny memes outside of work hours. They began sharing details of their lives. Ethan's love for baking sourdough, Cody's failed attempts at growing a balcony herb garden. The digital worlds they were building were beginning to be mirrored by a very real and increasingly important connection in the physical one. Ethan found himself noticing the way Cody's eyes lit up when he solved a problem, the way he bit his lip when he was concentrating, the surprisingly gentle tone he used when he was trying to explain a complex piece of code. He was starting to see the person behind the codebreaker persona, and he liked what he saw. A lot. Chapter 4. The Glitch, approx 1,500 words. The Vortex game's deadline was looming. The pressure was on, and Ethan and Cody were spending late nights at Ethan's apartment, fueled by coffee and takeout. The game was coming together beautifully, but the crunch was taking its toll. They were both exhausted, and an old tension began to resurface, fueled by stress and sleep deprivation. It came to a head over a seemingly small artistic choice. Ethan had designed a serene, crystalline cavern, a place of quiet beauty where the player was meant to reflect on the story so far. Cody had implemented it, but had added his own flair. Subtle, shimmering particles that floated in the air, and a faint, ethereal echo to the player's footsteps. Ethan played the level and immediately frowned. The particles are too much, and the echo is distracting. It ruins the solitude of the space. It adds atmosphere, Cody argued, running a hand through his already messy hair. It makes it feel magical. Your version is like a museum exhibit. Look, don't touch. Mine is an experience. It's my narrative beat, Ethan shot back, his own patience fraying. You're not respecting the tone. You're always trying to jazz everything up. And you're always trying to slow everything down to a funeral march, Cody retorted, standing up. Maybe if you got your head out of the storyboards, for 1 second you'd see that games are supposed to be engaging. Engaging doesn't mean chaotic. Ethan stood as well, facing him. Why is it so hard for you to embrace quiet, to just let a moment be? The question hung in the air, charged with a meaning deeper than game design. Cody's face hardened. You know what, Ethan? Maybe it's because my life hasn't been one long, quiet, contemplative stroll. Some of us have to make noise just to be heard. The words were like a splash of cold water. The frustration drained from Ethan, replaced by a sudden, chilling understanding. Cody's constant motion, his loudness, his need for flash and excitement. It wasn't just a personality trait. It was a defense mechanism, a lifetime of compensating for a father who never listened, and a world he felt he had to shout to be seen by. Cody looked away, embarrassed by his own outburst. Forget it. Do what? You want with the damn cave. It's your story. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Cody. Wait, Ethan said, his voice soft. Cody paused, his hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, Ethan said. I didn't mean... I get it. I do. He took a step, closer. The particles can stay, and the echo, it's actually a really good idea. It makes the player feel the emptiness more, doesn't it? Because it highlights the silence. Cody slowly turned around. His eyes were wary. Yeah, that's what I was going for. I know, Ethan said. I was just too stressed and stubborn to see it. You're right. It's our game, not just mine. The anger between them dissolved, leaving behind a raw, honest vulnerability. They stood there in the middle of the room, the unspoken things hanging heavily between them. It's scary, Cody said quietly, finally voicing the fear they'd both been avoiding. What if we finish this and it's terrible? What if we've poured all this time into something that just proves our fans were right, that our styles don't mix? What if it's amazing, Ethan countered, taking another step closer. What if it's better than anything we could have made alone? He was close enough to see the flecks of gold in Cody's green eyes. The air crackled with a new kind of tension, one that had nothing to do with game design. Cody's gaze flickered down to Ethan's lips for a heartbeat. Ethan, he started, his voice barely a whisper. But the moment was too fragile, too new. The fear of ruining everything, their game, their partnership, their newfound friendship, was too great. Cody took a shaky breath and took a small step back. I should go. We're both tired. We'll look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow, Ethan nodded, his heart pounding with a confusing mix of disappointment and relief. Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow. After Cody left, the apartment felt emptier than ever. Ethan replayed the moment in his head. The almost confession, the electricity in the air. He realized with a jolt that his feelings for Cody had shifted from professional respect and friendship into something far more terrifying and exhilarating. He was falling for his former rival, and he had no idea what to do about it. Chapter 5. The launch, approx. 1,500 words. The final weeks were a blur of work. The awkwardness from their almost confession lingered, but they channeled it into a determined focus on finishing the game. They were more careful with each other, more polite, but the easy camaraderie was tinged with a new, nervous energy. They submitted Echo Drifter to Vortex Games with minutes to spare. There was nothing left to do but wait for the public and critical response. The game launched on a Friday. They decided to watch the reviews and player numbers come in together at Ethan's apartment, a silent pact to face whatever happened side by side. For the first hour, it was tense. A few reviews trickled in. A stunning blend of style and substance, one wrote. The movement is so fluid it's addictive, but it's the haunting story that will stay with you, said another. Then, a major gaming site gave it a 9/10. Echo Drifter is a masterpiece of synergy. It proves that the best creations often come from the collaboration of opposing forces. The dam broke. Positive reviews poured in. Players on forums were raving about the unique experience, the emotional payoff, the perfect marriage of gameplay and narrative. Their game was a hit. We did it, Cody whispered, staring at the screen, in disbelief. We actually did it. Ethan let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for months. A wave of relief and joy so powerful it made him dizzy washed over him. We did. They turned to look at each other, and the months of tension, collaboration, late nights, and unspoken feelings culminated in that single triumphant look. Without thinking, they both moved at once. Ethan grabbed Cody's arm and Cody pulled him into a fierce, crushing hug. They held on to each other, laughing, a release of all the stress and fear and hope. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. They were still holding on to each other's arms, their faces inches apart. The laughter faded, replaced by that same electric tension from weeks before. This time, neither of them looked away. Ethan, Cody said, his voice husky. All those arguments about quiet and noise, it was never really about the game, was it? Ethan shook his head slowly. No, I don't think it was. I'm sorry I'm so loud, Cody said, a small, vulnerable smile on his face. I'm sorry I'm so quiet, Ethan replied. Don't be, Cody whispered. I love your quiet. It makes me feel calm. It makes me feel seen for who I really am. Not just the codebreaker guy. The admission hung in the air, brave and true. And I love your noise, Ethan said, his heart hammering. It pushes me to be braver. It makes me feel alive. There was no more hesitation. Cody leaned in, and Ethan met him halfway. Their first kiss was nothing like their first meeting. It wasn't a clash of opposites. It was a fusion. It was the exhilarating rush of neon fury meeting the profound tenderness of starlight drifter. It was perfect. When they parted, they rested their foreheads together, both breathing heavily, smiling like fools. So, Cody said, his eyes sparkling, what's the sequel look like? Ethan laughed, a free, happy sound he wasn't sure he'd ever made before. I think we'll figure it out. Together. Months later, at the next year's Pixelplex convention, their booth wasn't in two separate corners. It was one large, shared space. Echo Drifter artwork dominated the backdrop. Ethan and Cody stood side by side, hands occasionally brushing as they talked to fans. They were no longer Ethan Reed and Codebreaker Lee, rival developers. They were Ethan and Cody, partners in every sense of the word. During a quiet moment, a young fan approached them, looking nervous. I love your game, he said. It's my favorite ever. He hesitated, then blurted out, my dad says game design is a waste of time, and that people like you aren't real men. Ethan and Cody exchanged a look of understanding. Cody put a reassuring hand on the kid's shoulder. The most real thing you can be is yourself, kid. Don't let anyone else write your code. Ethan nodded. And the world needs all kinds of games, The quiet ones and the loud ones, and especially the ones that are a bit of both. The boy smiled, a weight visibly lifting from his shoulders. He thanked them and walked away, standing a little taller. As the convention lights began to dim, Cody slipped his hand into Ethan's, lacing their fingers together. They looked out at the crowd, at the diverse tapestry of players and creators they were a part of. Their journey had started with forced collaboration, a clash of styles and personalities. But they had discovered that the strongest connections are often built from differences, not similarities. They had learned that love, like a great game, requires both a compelling narrative and the courage to engage with it fully. And in finding acceptance in each other's eyes, they had found the power to fully accept themselves, offering a beacon of hope and inspiration to anyone else who dared to play by their own rules.